Hi there, hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Website Wednesday. Right, today we are going to be talking about decluttering WordPress. So one of the reasons why we need to look at this and why we need to really take it seriously is because there can be some real consequences if you don't do some good housekeeping on your website. So it's often a really overlooked topic because we all get busy and the stuff like this just drops down to the bottom of your list. So just like having clutter on your desk can really hinder your productivity, your cluttered website can actually really hinder your business growth and your website's visibility. So let's have a think. So some of the things that it can unintentionally do is it can slow down your website's load times if it's really cluttered. It may lead to a poor user experience for several reasons, the slow loading time, or maybe because there's just stuff that's conflicting with each other. And ultimately that can help lead to lower search engine rankings. So none of that is stuff that we want. And we definitely don't want our website to become vulnerable to security threats, which can also be a real outcome if your website is cluttered. So I'm going to show you a website that I just thought last week when I meant to go live with this topic, it wasn't last week, it was the week before, I've got a really old website that I haven't logged into for ages. And so it's not massively cluttered, but it hasn't been updated for a long time. So I thought I would use that to show you some of the things that you can do to just try and help keep on top of the housekeeping of your website. So I'm going to dive into some of the first things that you should be looking at. And let me just come back and check. And just make sure and see who is in here with us. Julie, hi. Good to see you. Definitely guilty. Yeah, don't worry, you are definitely not alone with that. Joanne, good to see you. Dawn, hello. Gillian, hi. Jackie, hello. So Gillian and Jackie, I know that you were really keen to go through this topic, so thank you. Great that you're here live. So let me share my screen, and I am going to show you a website that, frankly, I should be mortified about. The front end of it looks really good, but behind the scenes, there is loads going on. So when you log into your website and you see these notifications in the red circle, it needs to be a red flag to you that there's stuff that you need to do and you need to pay attention to. Now, when you see 15 in a red circle, you're like, oh, wow, I should have come in here a long time ago and figured out what's going on in here. But when I show you what's happening, so we know 4 of these are plugin updates. The rest of them are probably WordPress core updates and theme updates. And the irony of that is that you don't need all of those themes. So actually 5 of these, it's gone up to 16 now. So 5 of these are plugin updates and 10 of them are themes. Now, you don't need all of these themes. And so I'm going to dive into the themes and show you what I would be doing to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So to update the plugins, I'm sure you guys know how to do this. I would just click on select all and I would hit update. I'm not going to do it now because it'll take a little bit of time. And so in the interests of making sure that I get through as much as possible, I'm going to show you, I'm going to come over here to themes. So here we can see 10 themes. So you go to appearance and themes. Now, I use Divi. Most of you who are in my world also use Divi. This is how old this site is, that I used to use a child theme called Bare Bones for Divi. You guys, if I've installed Divi for you, this looks a little bit different. This is like all pink. So what we really need in here is 3 themes. You need your child theme, you need your parent theme, which is Divi, this one here, and you need one of the default WordPress themes, the most recent one, which at the moment is 2024. And it looks like this. So all these other ones, they're really old, like 2020, 2023, 2022, 2021. You don't need any of those. The reason why we keep one of the default WordPress themes is because if Divi was to fatally fail, if it was just literally just fall over, then your website would back up or it would like fall onto the default WordPress theme. So you always want to have one of the default ones there, but the rest of them you can get rid of. So the way you get rid of it is by clicking on the details for it. This is for 2017, this is how old this site is. And then you see like a little option here, it says delete. So just go ahead, click on the confirmation, and that's it gone. And you would do that on all of them. You don't even need to update them first before you do it. So just ignore all of these. And you would come in and you would just hit delete on all of them. It's 2016. See if I've got a 2015 in here. Probably not. I have. I got 2015 in here. So I'm not going to go through them all. You get the idea. You would literally just click on them, more details, and then click on delete, and then OK. So what you would end up with is your child theme, your parent theme, and then the current Divi theme 2024. So that's your themes cleared up. Then you want to come over into your plugins, and we want to have a look at the plugins that you've got installed. Now, obviously, you would update them all. Like I said, I'm not going to go through and update them all because it just takes a little bit of time, and the website goes into maintenance mode whilst they're updating. So, and again, this is how old it is, because when I first started using the Divi theme, we used to have to install the Divi builder separately. And then when we started transitioning to the visual builder, we could use the classic editor. These are all plugins that we just don't need anymore. So in order to delete a plugin, you have to deactivate it first, and then you would go ahead and hit delete. Now, you want to make sure before you start doing all of this that you are backing up your website. You want to use something like Updraft Plus to back it up. And every time you update or delete a plugin, you do want to make sure that you go ahead and check that the front of the website is still working and that it's still loading correctly, and that there's nothing that you have removed that is going to impact the functionality of the site. So look, this was for an event that I ran in 2018. So you would have a quick flick through, have a look, just make sure that it's all looking okay, and then go back and continue. So you would keep on going back to your plugins and making sure that if you're deleting them, that each time you delete one, it's not impacting the front end of your website. So classic editor, I know I can get rid of that as well. So I would go ahead and I would delete that too. So it might be difficult for you, if you built the site a long time ago, to go through and know which of your plugins you are actually using. So I know that this one isn't active, so I could probably delete this. So I've deactivated it some time ago. And so that can probably just go because it's not in use anyway. But you would go through and you would check all of these other ones and see which ones are necessary and which ones you still want to retain. And if you're not sure, then the first thing you can do is you could just go ahead and deactivate it. So you would just click on deactivate, then go in and check that that hasn't impacted any of the functionality on your site. So it's going to take you a little bit of time to do this if you have lots of plugins, but it's really, really worthwhile because your plugins are slowing down your website. Now, some of them are really vital. Some of them you definitely want. So things like your speed optimizer, things like Yoast, you definitely want to have those kind of plugins on your site. But have a look at some of the other bells and whistles ones, the ones that you might have thought, oh, this looks really cool. I'm going to try this out and see what happens. So I had a client, this was years ago. She used to love all the stuff like this time of year. She would have snow falling on her website. And it was really cool. She had some really cool effects, but it massively slowed down her site. And she was doing it through using plugins. And she got all excited about it. And it was brilliant. I love the fact that she got excited about it. But at some point, you have to kind of turn the gimmicks off and just think, okay, my website is for business and I need to make it work as efficiently as I possibly can in order to give the users the best possible experience. So, so that's your plugins. The other thing about plugins, of course, is they need to be kept up to date. So you just need to go ahead and make sure that you're clicking on update now. So ultimately, you're going to get rid of all of these numbers in the red circles by the time you've come out of doing your declutter. So let me just stop my screen share. I'm going to come back because that's the first thing that I wanted to mention to you is about clearing out your themes and plugins. And let me just check and see if that has brought up any questions for anybody in the chat before I move on to the next thing. Ooh, it's a bit glitchy, isn't it? Sorry, it looks like I'm kind of moving in slow motion. Jackie says, I'm trying to delete some themes, but I only have activate and preview as options. So the delete link, it's not very obvious. So it's like it's tucked away right down underneath. So Jackie, we've got a call tomorrow, haven't we, for Rock That Website. So let's have a look at it tomorrow on the call and we can go through some of it together. Joanne says, what are the basics we must keep for plugins? I mean, it depends on the functionality that you need, but I would say that you want to have a backup plugin, even if you are using something like SiteGround, which does 24-hour backups for you. You definitely want to have an SEO plugin, something like Yoast or All-in-One or Rank Math. Another one that you want to make sure that you've got is, I've got a list of it. I'm fairly sure I've got a blog post, and what I'll probably do is I will send you a link to the blog post, Joanne. It's probably easier. But you do want to make sure that you've got some of the really foundational plugins there, but you want to be using the mainstream ones. So when plugins get a little bit buggy, they are often the ones that aren't as often downloaded, they're not as frequently updated, and they're just not as well supported, which means they just don't have the resources to keep them updated with all of the new releases of WordPress. So you just want to be careful, because not all plugins are made equal. You might have 20 really slick, efficient plugins on your site, and then one really bloated, inefficient plugin that can just send your website grinding it to a halt, because it's just not coded in the same way. So yeah, okay, Joanne, I will, but send me a DM after this if I forget to send that to you, but I'll try and remember to send you a link to that. So that is themes and plugins, really, really important part of decluttering your website. Now, the next thing you want to have a look at is outdated content. So this is like a little bit of a spring clean for your website. So you want to have a look at your old blog posts. You want to have a look at your unused pages. And you also want to have a look, if you're running e-commerce, any of your outdated product descriptions. So over time, we tend to accumulate a lot of digital clutter. I'm just preparing for my Black Friday. I'm doing a whole week of deals next week, so look out for that. So I'm just putting together the final touches on the page that I like, a kind of catalog page of the offers that I'm running next week. And what I discovered is I still had a page published from Black Friday last year that I just hadn't put into draft. So I tend to not delete pages very often, especially if I think there's a chance that I might revitalize them or reinstate them at some point in time. So what I should have done with my Black Friday page last year is, once all the Black Friday hullabaloo has died down, is I should have put that page into draft. So it's available for me to reactivate if I wanted to, but it's not available for people to actually go ahead and view. So sometimes we just forget. And so that's obviously what happened when I was searching for my Black Friday page that I'd created like a couple of weeks ago, and I ended up with two. I was like, how come I've got two? I only created one, and then realized that one of them was from last year. So so you do want to make sure that your website isn't just getting bloated without you kind of realizing. It's a good idea to just audit those pages every once in a while. And it's a really good idea to go through your blog posts. Once you start getting a good library together of blog posts, you want to make sure that you're going through them, check that the information in them is still correct, make sure that it's still making sense for you to even have that topic on your website. Some of them might be completely outdated. So if you're talking about an event that has happened in like 2021, it might not be relevant to your business even anymore. And it might be that the call to action that you had on your website back then might be to join a course that you were running in March 2022. So you need to go back and just have a look at them, trash them if they're not valid anymore, update them if they are. So because the updated or irrelevant pieces of content, they're just confusing for your visitors, but they can also hurt your SEO. So it's really critical to just identify them and either delete or archive any kind of unnecessary content. So another area that you should be looking at is your media library. So you want to make sure that you're organizing your media files, deleting any unused files, and optimizing your image sizes and adding alt tags where necessary. So I talked in my membership, the Visibility Vault, about this week, saying that we should really be going through and checking out alt tags. I have got a YouTube video. If you're not sure what alt tags are, I can go ahead and I will link to that in the chat afterwards. So you can just really familiarize yourself. It's just a 5-minute video with what it is and how you should be using it and how you can optimize those alt tags. But basically, your media library is like a digital closet, really. You really want to keep it organized and clutter-free. So if you can organize your media files, then you're likely to improve your website's loading speed and its overall performance. And also optimizing your image sizes can really help with your overall website file size. And that has a good impact on your hosting capacity, because you only have a finite amount of storage capacity with your hosting plan. And if you start to outgrow that, then you have to upgrade your hosting plan, and it costs you more money. So it's a good idea to just have a periodic clear out. I was working on a client site last night, and I was looking for one of their logos. And when I went through, I realized they had 5 versions of logos that their previous web designer had uploaded before the logo was actually finalized. They'd obviously been like putting it in situ so that the client could see it, but they'd never removed the old versions of it. So immediately I was able to ditch a whole load of the old files, and it just frees up some of the storage. And it's just good to have a clear out like that every once in a while. So we've looked at themes, we've looked at plugins, we've talked about outdated content, we've talked about your media library. And then the final thing, if you want to get really goofy, and I'm a little bit hesitant to mention it because I think for some of you it might just feel really scary, but you can start to think about, what is the code on my website looking like? Is it clean? Is it going to be performing well? So whilst you might not be a developer, you might not be familiar with any of this, understanding some of the basics can really help improve your website's performance. So things like, and please don't freak out, because if you don't want to get involved in any of this, then it's absolutely fine. But things like minifying your CSS files. So CSS stands for cascading style sheets. It basically controls all of the style on your website. So if you minify those files and any JavaScript, which are some of the scripts that run on your site, and also if you think about leveraging your browser cache, I've got a video that shows you how to do that on Divi, and also using a content delivery network, a CDN, you've probably heard of those. They can significantly speed up your website. So these are the kind of things that you can put to one side for a moment, but I just wanted to plant a seed of thought in your mind about what they are and things that you can be looking for. But basically, in layman's terms, if we're talking about minifying, it's you're squeezing the file to make it smaller. So when you minify something like your CSS files or your JavaScript files, you're removing unnecessary characters like spaces and tabs and comments without actually impacting the performance of the code. And it makes the file smaller, which means that they load faster. And some of the themes have options for minifying. So like Divi has options for minifying, just like it has options for browser caching. So browser caching, in kind of layman's terms, is when you think of it like saving a copy of a web page on your computer. So when you visit a website, your browser saves the file for the next time that you visit. So things like the images, the CSS, and the JavaScript. It means that the next time that you visit the website, it's going to load faster the second time around, because your browser loads these files from the local storage instead of having to go and download them again from the server, which is faster. So it speeds up the load time. And so your website can help with that. And then the final one was a content delivery network that I mentioned. That's like where you have, if you imagine like a global network of servers that are storing copies of your website files. And when a user visits your website, the CDN delivers the files from the server that is closest to you. So it basically is reducing the distance that the files have to travel, which results in faster load times, especially if you've got users in lots and lots of different geographical locations. So if you've got people viewing your website from Hong Kong and from Canada and from Australia, using a CDN would really, really speed up the load time for them. So that's some of the geeky stuff. I just wanted to explain those in case you weren't familiar with any of that terminology. But like I say, don't worry too much about those things. I would love for you to focus mainly on the first 4 things that I looked at. That was plugins, themes, your outdated content, pages and posts, and your media library. So take a look at those 4 things, and that's going to get you in much better shape if you're wanting to have a real go at doing some spring cleaning in your website, even though we're not in spring. So let's have a look. See if I've got any questions. Julie said, should we also check device optimization? Not sure if that's the right word. Does that stay the same over time or not? So device optimization, so things like making sure it loads correctly on mobiles and tablets and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. You definitely want to be checking that your website functions correctly. It doesn't really fall into the category of decluttering, because when you declutter your website, whether you're viewing it on a desktop or whether you're viewing it on a mobile, it's going to have an impact on all of the devices that you use. But from a usability perspective and from a design perspective, when you're going through it, then yes, 100% you should be looking at the mobile responsiveness of your site. And I think that's what you're meaning when you're looking at that, Julie. So thank you for the question. I hope I haven't misunderstood it. But hopefully that was useful to you. I can't see any other questions at the moment, but drop them into the chat in the WordPress Happy community if you have got any questions. And I will see you next week as usual. I'll be like in full-on Black Friday mode next week. I've never run the kind of offers that I'm going to be running next week, where I'm doing 5 days of deals. So every single day, I'm going to be releasing a new deal. I'm actually really, really excited. It's made me look back at my catalog of what I have and the stuff that I really want to offer as well, things that I've never offered before, and looked at it all in a new light. Sometimes it's really nice to do that with your stuff and look at it with fresh eyes and think, okay, there's a reason for me to do this now, for me to like pull it out of the closet, give it a refresh, and put it out there available for people to buy. Some of the stuff has never been available for people to purchase before. So I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, so I will see you next week when we're in full-on Black Friday frenzy. All right, thank you so much for being here today. Take care.